In this lesson, we're covering everything you need to know about the L sound in American English. By the time we're through, you'll feel confident identifying, pronouncing, and practicing this important sound. So let's jump right in. The American L sound is important because it's found in so many common words like love, believe, and small. Mispronouncing this sound can cause confusion or even misunderstandings, so mastering the pronunciation can really enhance your clarity and your confidence when speaking English. In the International Phonetic Alphabet, otherwise known as the IPA, the American L is represented by this symbol. This makes it easy to identify in dictionaries and pronunciation guides. I use the same symbol in the super simple sound chart that I use in private sessions with my students. Here are the most common challenges that speakers face when pronouncing L. And I should mention here, some of these are challenges for native speakers as well as ELL speakers or English as a second language speakers, because L is a really hard sound. It's a challenge for everyone, even native speakers of English. So if this one's difficult for you, don't be discouraged. It's difficult for a lot of us. But let's look at the common challenges. The first one is substituting R for L. So we will hear right when we mean to say light, or the listener will hear royal when the speaker meant to say loyal. The second most common substitution is W for L. So we hear way instead of lay, or wine instead of line. Third most common challenge is omitting the L at the end of a word. This one is most common in ELL or ESL speakers. And I say omit L, but it's kind of, to my ear, it sounds like an O substitution. So what's happening is, we'll talk about placement in a moment, but the tongue isn't moving to the right spot behind or right above and behind the upper teeth. Without that movement, we just get feo instead of feel, or school instead of school. So it lacks clarity. Can you hear that? It sounds like an O to me. It's okay if it doesn't sound like an O to you, but it just lacks some clarity. Feel instead of feel. School instead of school. Now, it does depend what comes after it, how obvious that deletion of the L sound is to the listener, but it definitely does add clarity when it's fully pronounced. And we'll talk about pronunciation in just a moment. Before we do that, let's talk about the type of sound. What type of sound is L? Well, it's a voiced alveolar lateral approximant. Yes, a bunch of fancy words. Here's what they mean. Voiced, it means your vocal cords vibrate when you say the sound. Alveolar, it means the tongue touches the alveolar ridge. So the tip of your tongue touches that spot right above where your upper teeth meet your upper gums on the back. So not right on the teeth, not right behind the upper teeth, but right above where the teeth and gums meet on the upper, what is that, gum, jawline, la, la, la. That's it. Lateral approximant. All that means is that air flows around the sides of the tongue to make the sound. Now, this is good for speech professionals to know, but as a speaker, you kind of just do this. There's no real way to tell you to flow air around the sides of your tongue. You just kind of do it, la. But it's good for us to know as professionals if you're a teacher watching this lesson. Okay, let's talk about the difference between light L and dark L. There are several different types of L in phonetics, but in the American accent, the two most commonly used are the light L and the dark L. The light L is used in American English, but much less frequently than the dark L. We usually use the dark L, but it depends on the context. Let's talk about that. Here's a quick overview. The light L is pronounced by placing the tip of your tongue on the alveolar ridge. We talked about that spot right above where the top teeth and gums meet. So it's on the back. So the tip of the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge, but the back of the tongue is very low in the mouth. La, la, la. It's a very clear and very bright sound. In the general American accent, it's used in these contexts. It's used in the initial position. So that means at the beginning of the word. So you'll hear the light L in words like light, leave, look. If I did those with the dark L, which we'll talk about in a moment, you'd hear this: light, leave, look, light, light, leave, leave, look, look. All right, we'll talk about dark L in a moment, but just so you can hear the difference. The other place we use the light L is before a vowel. So when the L is followed by a vowel sound, we use that lighter, clearer, brighter L. Examples: believe, yellow. Now listen to those with a dark L. Believe, yellow. Okay? Closer comparison, I'll say them right beside each other. Believe, believe. Yellow, yellow. So that it even affected the sound I did afterwards. So you can hear a difference between light L and dark L. So let's talk about dark L and get more comfortable with that placement. Dark L is much more common in American English, which it doesn't seem like it because it sounded so weird when I used it in the wrong place, but it is a more common sound. To pronounce the dark L, the tongue tip is actually in the same place. It's on that alveolar ridge, but instead of the back of the tongue being low in the mouth, the back of the tongue is high in the mouth. So it's closer to the soft palate or the velum, or I like to tell my students to think of your throat flattening like a pancake. So your throat can be very open or your throat can be very flat. And when you pronounce the dark L, picture your throat kind of flattening like a sandwich. You can hear it sounds darker or muffled, right? La, light, wool, dark. The dark L is actually hard to do in isolation, which makes sense because we don't use it at the beginning of a word. The dark L tends to occur, or it does occur in American English at least, in the final position of a word. So you'll hear it in words like ball, full, cool, right? You can hear that there's a little bit of like a muffled sound. You'll also hear it before a consonant in words like milk or hold, okay? Let me do a quick comparison of those words. I'll go back to final position, the difference between light and dark. I'll do light first just because that's the way my brain is working today, so here we go. Ball, ball. Full, full. Cool, cool. Little different. That one's hard to do. Before consonant, I'll try to do it. I don't know if I can. Milk, milk. Hold. No, that was dark. That was dark. Let me do light. It's hard. Hold, 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 hold. It's with that O, it's almost impossible to get the tongue where it needs to be for the light L, which is low, because I'm doing a different sound. Anyway, you get the point. This is really hard. I want you to try it. So we know the two pronunciations now. Light L, back of the tongue is high. Sorry, front of the tongue, tip of the tongue is behind the alveolar ridge, back of the tongue is low. For the dark L, keep the front, but the back of the tongue comes up. Repeat after me and see if you can make these words sound different. We'll do light L first, then dark L. And this is not the most important thing, but since I'm having trouble doing it, I want to see if you are as well. Maybe you won't. Okay, here we go. Ball, ball. Full, full. Cool, 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 cool. That's the way I'd say it. That's totally cool. That's totally cool. Versus the light L, that's totally cool. I wouldn't do that. But a lot of my students who are ELL or ESL speakers will do that. So this is it affects the vocal quality too. Let's just quickly try it with the before consonants, the one I couldn't do. So try it in milk. Do light L and then dark L in milk. Milk, milk. And in hold. Hold, hold. So dark L is it is more muffled. It requires less movement. It almost sounds I don't want to say lazier. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's definitely like less pronounced and less clear. And getting that less clear kind of sound, as I said, affects vocal quality, and vocal quality overall will change your overall accent. If the American accent is something that you're choosing to learn or choosing to use, that's why this sound can be really transformative. So there's a lot more we can do. I'm not going to stay on this too much longer. We know the difference between light L and dark L. Here's what I tell my students about using these sounds. If you're someone like an actor who's really striving toward that perfect native sounding American accent, that light L in the wrong place will give you away immediately. So if you're unsure, go for the dark L. But if you're not worried about a perfect, if there is such a thing, American accent, and you just want clearer speech, don't worry too much about dark L and light L. It's not going to affect the clarity. It's just going to affect the overall vocal quality. So it's up to you, depending on your goals, how much time you actually spend worrying about the difference. It just depends. With my students, it depends on the goals, okay? That being said, we're going to practice together. We're going to practice L at the beginning, middle, and ends of words. I just want to warn you that the placement does feel slightly different based on what comes before it and what comes after it. So don't worry too much about how it feels. Focus on how it's sounding. If you are concerned about using the light L in the right place and the dark L in the right place, you're definitely going to want to think about that. In the initial position, that's easy. It's always going to be light. In the middle of words, between vowels, it'll be light. And at the end of the word, we can use dark. But if you are not an actor, your primary focus is just making sure that you're not turning this sound into another sound like a R or a W, or deleting it completely. All right, so several different goals can come with this sound, but let's practice together. Here we go. Light, love, believe, world. World is such a tricky word. It's perfectly okay to take that word and pronounce it. It's technically a one-syllable word, but think of it as two syllables. World. And then you can take the time, old, to get that L. And there it's going to be dark because it's before a consonant. World. Can you hear that? That's the dark L. Keep that darkness as you say little. Oh, little is fun, right? Because the L at the beginning is light and the L at the end is dark. And then the T in the middle is a T between vowels, which we'll talk about another day. So when you say the word little, you're actually doing so many different sounds. Light L, T between vowels, dark L at the end. Let's try it together. Little. Little. Now, quickly. Little. 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 Can you still hear that in my voice? Little. Hopefully you can. All right. People. People. Wonderful job. So that is L. But before we wrap up this lesson, there's one last thing you need to know. L isn't always pronounced in English. There are a handful of words where the L is written, you'll see the letter, but it's silent or not pronounced. The most common of these silent L words, words like could. It's not could, it's could. No L. Same thing, should, would. Could, should, would. Walk. There's no L pronounced. You can see the L in the word, but it's not walk, it's walk. It's not talk, it's talk. It's not chalk, it's chalk. Walk, talk, chalk. So be on the lookout for silent L in a handful of words. So that's everything you need to know about the American L. Now that you understand the sound, make sure you practice it regularly. And a helpful tip for learning this sound is to start listening. Really fine-tune your ear. Listen to speakers and notice the different qualities of the L, the light L and where they're using it. The dark L, that quality if you can hear it in speakers of the American accent or whatever accent it is that you're trying to learn or just paying attention to. It's really interesting. And the more you listen, the better your ear gets at hearing the sounds that you want to produce in your own speech.